finest producer, Unfiltered. Woo!
All right.
Here we go.
Here we go. I'm so excited right now. I put on a little something extra.
Oh, I love that. That's cute.
It's a bit
I
chilly.
want it. Yeah, in
It's
Miami.
cool, right?
I don't believe you, but okay.
I buy all my shit for
I'm like
like
a
$12.
skulls.
Right? It's leopard
Yeah.
skulls. Oh, what you got
Is
over
it-
there? What you got?
Oh, well, I'm having a Southern Appalachian Amaro. Um, yes, a bitter aperitif made from locally harvested plants from the Southern Appalachian region. Honey.
Wow. How do you get your hand? Oh, with the pinky too. We got the pinkies going on.
It's the Italian thing.
I think it's just the classiness that's deep down inside of us.
Oh my God, not that deep.
Okay, let's get into this. Let's take it from the top. I want to know what your name is, who you are, where you came from, the whole shebang.
Work. Well, my name is Summer Minerva, and I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up on Staten Island to a working class Italian American family. I grew up on a street called Ada Drive, and the number of our home was 222, just like what's around your neck right now. So I had to shout that out because I love numbers and I'm really into numerology. But yeah, I'm currently living in Asheville, North Carolina. I moved here about 2.5 years ago at the beginning of COVID. I moved from New York City.
Let me
I'm
just
a,
stop you right there.
yeah.
Why on earth? Because I still don't understand.
Yeah,
What are you doing in Asheville?
it's such a good question. I wake up every morning and like as I listen to like chickens at 6 a.m. and dogs barking and you know, I wonder that same thing. To get real with you, just like right off the bat, is that I have always felt like I was always running away from something or chasing after something. Um, that feels like that has been the flow of most of my life. When I came to this very rural place at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, and New York City was filled with lockdowns and restrictions and all of those things, I needed a place where I could have space, where I could continue to create, where I could have my needs met, my social needs, my emotional needs, my need for spirituality and nature. And so I kind of just came here because I had a friend who had a tiny home that he was willing to rent to me for like $500 a month.
Oh, man.
And I fell in love with someone that kind of helped to keep me here. But really, I find here that I can really explore a lot of the creative things that I need to, because I am a writer and I am a filmmaker and I am a creator. And what I always found living in big cities was that I was constantly trying to chase and didn't consistently have enough time to just create and just find myself as an artist. And so while there are things that are definitely missing here, like, variety in the way of music and the dance classes that I love and the museums that I survive on, and, people who are more like me, more metropolitan people, there is a part of it that I really love, and I really found new ways to be myself here. Um, is it forever? No,
Nothing is.
nothing is. But I'm waiting for the right moment to settle somewhere else. And
So wait, does this fall into the category of you saying that you always ran away from things?
right, so I'm working on that tendency. that I have to run away because this place is boring,
Right.
you know, and be like, oh, I'm just gonna now go back to another city and continue chasing the dream. It's like actually boredom is a feeling from which arises brilliance and innovation and creativity. And God knows I'm bored to death, like often, but I've also been highly productive since I've moved here. So, you know,
Well, that's
she's
great. I
making
mean,
things.
I identify, man. I have a tattoo that says this must be the place because I was, I've been on the road for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like what? I moved to a different city every year or two.
Yeah.
So the chase is real and I get it. I wrote this because I realized, as cheesy as it sounds, that this must be the place. It's right here. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So I
mhm.
chose a city to settle in and stay put in when it's boring or not. Obviously, I'm in Miami, so it's never boring. But I choose to stay home all the time.
Yeah.
I don't go out anymore. I mean that's not true. I go out probably I'd say like once or twice a month, whereas, I was out every night, all night, all the time.
Right.
So I
I
get it.
remember
This must be the place. We were with me.
at the dawn of it all, you know, I know that you've definitely
Yeah.
continued that uh path, but now I like to see that you're like settled and content
Wait,
and
I love how you
doing it.
stuttered on the word path. Like you wanted to say some psychological shit like pattern, maybe. I get it. And the funny thing is, I tell myself I'm here for good and I'm here and I'm settling, but like I've said that before, so maybe I'm still on the same pattern. You never know, but
Right.
I just stopped giving a shit about my pattern. I'm
Yeah.
just like, I want to live. I don't care anymore.
I want to live, and I feel like for so long I've been pushing a rock up a hill. Like when I was living in New York and I was pursuing acting and performing, I was saying yes to anything that I could get. And what was happening was I wasn't even inviting my fans and inviting my support system to come to these things because I personally didn't even believe in them. And
Hmm.
so I'm like, why am I doing these performances? Why am I participating in something that I myself wouldn't attend and definitely don't want to invite anybody to? So, what does that say about me as an artist if I'm just kind of giving away my time in the hopes that it's going to bring me to the next big thing?
Right.
And so I'm here and I'm creating my empire.
I love that.
Um, and that's kind of how I'm framing it. Like I said, it doesn't feel like it's forever. I am traveling. I'm I'm here for like no more than a month consecutively. I'm going to New
Yeah, you're
York. I'm
always.
going performing.
Hmm.
So this is just a good base for me. I have an amazing community. I live on a 3 acre farm with 8 amazingly, beautifully open, loving humans, and that has been an amazing support system. You
That's
know,
that's great.
it's the dream. It's kind of like something I used to dream about when I was really little. Like, I live on a farm and I live with like amazing, beautiful humans, and we have dinner and we have saunas and we play music together and we're there for each other. You know, we really witness each other in life. And that's
Wow.
something I've never had before. Yeah.
I don't think that's something a lot of people have.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
great to have like a community of people. To be honest, I never really had that. I escaped my community when I was like 19 and I found a bunch of friends along the way, but it was never a crew of people that I was always hanging out with. I just kind of like collected my own cool people.
Yeah.
I never had like a close group that were doing the damn thing together.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Um,
independent enough where I have my own life. You know, I'm the oldest person who lives here, but only by a couple months. But I'm still very independent. I'm still very me, myself, like career oriented, like really doing it. And yet I have this, it just feels like I have people around me that are tracking me, and are
Yeah.
like paying attention and from the day to day, and that's really special. And I
Wow.
just love them. We have so much fun.
That's
Yeah.
really amazing. I'm jealous. Okay, so
Come
I
through.
interrupted
Yeah.
you. What'd you say?
Yeah. Oh, I just said come through.
Oh, maybe. I was ready to take that road trip spontaneously. You got to catch me on the spontaneity. You know what I can't plan anything. It's got to be I'm in the mood like, yo, can I come? Actually, I'm out of town. Okay, done for another 6
Right.
months.
Right.
You know? You know, if I'm like if I'm on the wave, that's where you
Right.
should catch me. But I'm gonna come. I'm dying to come to your farm. Are you crazy?
It's just like,
Yeah. Okay, so I
yeah.
interrupted you before. Tell me who you are, what you do. What is this empire you speak of?
The Empire. Yeah, so I'm a storyteller. That's my main. That if I were to just kind of distill everything down, like all the different ways that I express myself, I would say storytelling is at the heart of it. I'm a writer. Um, I if we're doing like CV stuff, I just finished a documentary. It's an autobiographical feature documentary about my search for belonging through the lens of my queer Italian American identity.
I'm dying to
And
hear more about this. You got to tell me more about it.
yeah, yeah. Well, Summer Within is the name of it, and it basically opens on Staten Island, where I came from, where I grew up with my very Italian American family. And I guess the question that we open with is, how can I belong to this culture and how can I belong to this family when I feel so different because of my gender identity, because of my sexuality, because of my eccentricities? How can I be part of this? How can I belong when I look around me, the Italian American people that I see and the representations of us anywhere depict us as either hyper, macho, masculine men or highly feminized women. And I don't fall into either of those categories.
Even
So
though your
how can
name
I
is
be this?
Tony and you're from Staten Island.
Right.
Tony from
Right.
Staten
Side note,
Island.
but my given name is in fact Tony. And we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I've departed from that in choosing a different name, but ultimately, you know, the fact that my birth name is Anthony Minerva and I grew up on Staten Island as an Italian American, it's almost like a joke. Like, wow, like can someone be any more different from that stereotype on the
Mhm.
surface? And so I go to my grandmother in the film who
Wait,
came
sorry.
from Naples.
Before we start,
Oh,
just because I
please, yeah.
really, because I wasn't raised with your trials and tribulations. I had my own, right?
Right,
So
right.
I have questions. Like for
Oh, please, yeah.
my perspective is very fuck you. So for me, when you
Mm,
tell me you're not Tony from Staten Island, I'm my initial reaction is like, well, how about you are Tony from Staten Island, but Tony from Staten Island doesn't look like that. You know what I mean? Like
right.
why can't you just kind of be in your face like, yeah, my name's fucking Tony and I'm from Staten Island and like fuck you, like whatever is going on in your head right now because I don't fit that stereotype, that's
Mm,
your problem, you know?
right.
Like I kind
Yeah,
of
I
see the
think,
name
yeah.
change as I don't understand the name change.
Yeah, so I think for me, when I first started going by the name Summer, it wasn't something that was meant to be all the time.
Mhm.
I started going to these festivals and I somehow, envisioned that this was an energy that I wanted to embody. And and so then slowly as my community shifted, and the people that I started spending more time with were people from these festivals. Suddenly, all the time, I was being called Summer, 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 and it was just kind of, being called that meant that I could kind of start over in a way. When I first started using the name Summer, it was like it unlocked parts of me that Anthony never accessed. So
Ooh.
it's kind of like I put on the name and suddenly I'm able to be this person that is self-actualized,
Ooh.
that I'm not just my parents' child, because
Mm.
my father is also Anthony.
Mhm.
So by owning this new name, it gave me access to a freedom, um, a certain kind of expression. It opened up my femininity,
That's
my
so
experience of my femininity. And what's funny too is I'm going to Burning Man, and there are these playa names, and I was like, how amazing would it be if my playa name was Anthony?
wow. That would be a good twist. Wait, we got a little visitor here. Come here, G.
We do.
Oh no, he ran away. He wants to play. He's getting upset at me. I'm excited for that. I can identify with that as an actor. Like as
Yeah,
someone who's a trained actor, not that I'm professionally an actor, but when you do character work and all of a sudden things come out of you and you're like, who's that? Where did that come from? Ooh, I like this.
right.
And it kind of unlocks a whole different side of you. I
Mhm.
get it.
And no one ever said, you can't, how are you, Tony? Like, how are you, Tony from Staten Island? No one like took that away from me.
Mhm.
No one said, oh, you're too gay to be Tony, or you're too effeminate to be Tony. Nobody took that away from me. I didn't want to claim that anymore. I didn't
Mm.
want to claim that I'm Italian American and my father is Anthony and I live in a patriarchy, et cetera, et cetera.
You were over it.
I was over it. I was. I just felt so like I just did not belong. I just did not belong in that context. And that's why the film, I go to my grandmother who came from Naples and I'm like trying to understand, what is Italy like? What is our culture like that she came from? Because I knew she came from a small, provincial little village that had like farms, and I just wanted to understand, is there a way that I could possibly fit inside of this culture? And she had dementia and she couldn't really tell me, so I said, I'm going to Italy. And when I went to Naples, I discovered there's an ancient tradition of third gender and trans people known as the Femminili. And
I love,
I
describe for us who the Feminelli are. I love them. Hold on, we have a visitor, maybe. Come here. He got a haircut today. He's so cute. Hi, G. Is this your first TV experience?
Aw.
Poor baby. Hi, Bubba. Hi, Bubba. Say hi to Summer. Do you die? Did you ever see him?
So
Did I ever
cute.
show him to you? He's a baby. He's new.
No, I thought you were gonna show me Ollie.
He's new to the planet. No, this is Gangster, and he's a G, and he's so cool, and we love him. Okay, so sorry for the interruption, but he's just so cute.
Yeah.
I can't. Okay, so please, my favorite, the Femminelli, and tell me also how far back it goes.
Sure. So the Femminili are basically, they are a third gender group from the Campania region of Italy, which is the state that Naples is in. And the Femminili are known as being people who are born male, but they have the soul and the expression of a woman. And they are present at a lot of folkloric rituals and ceremonies that still happen to this day in Naples. And so they mock childbirth, they put on fake weddings, they process up this ancient mountain, sacred mountain called Monte Vergine, where they pay devotion to a Black Madonna. And that's on February 2nd of every year, by the way, which is
Wow.
a pagan holiday known as Imbolc. But in Italy, in southern Italy, it's called the Candelora. And in Christian and Catholic traditions, it's called Candlemas. It's like an anglicized word, but the holiday happens halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. And so their holiday is about calling in the light and welcoming the coming of spring. Um, that tradition goes back, thousands of years. This Black Madonna temple that's at the top of this mountain actually was a goddess temple for the goddess Cybele. And Cybele is known for having devotees that, in order to like indoctrinate themselves into the mysteries of this goddess, they would castrate themselves and offer their blood and their testicles to the earth to prove um, their devotion to this goddess. And so this is a practice that has happened at that site for thousands of years. I mean, it doesn't happen anymore. There's no castrations going on there today.
Yeah, at what
But
point did the castration stop?
right. Yeah, I don't really know. It's like it's not well documented.
Hmm.
Um, but in antiquity, they were known as the Galli. And then over time, with the different ethnic groups coming in and out of southern Italy and different, forces of domination and things, culture does evolve and change. But the legacy of third gender people in southern Italy is something that's not very well known. And yet it continues to this day, and there's evidence of it from the past. And that's
What
been a
kind of
huge part of.
evidence?
There's poetry, like in epic poems like the Iliad, and there's an entire kind of what's it called, like meter. There's a meter that's devoted to the Galli. It's called Galliambic pentameter,
Hmm.
and certain poems follow a certain meter in order to have a certain rhythm to it. And the Galli, who were known for having, you know, certain psychic powers and certain, creative, just creative proclivities, you could say. They're known for, singing at really high pitches and writing these poems. And you can find evidence of it that go back, a long time. There's a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but some people who have written about it, including Randy Connor. There's a book called Blossom of Bone that goes really in depth into the Gali and their role inside of the spiritual traditions of southern Italy and around the Mediterranean.
Wow. I can't believe it was in the Iliad too. How come they skipped that part in high school?
Yeah,
Why?
I mean it's so long. I don't know. I don't. I
I
think that
guess,
they
I
may
mean, all of
reference
us were
it.
reading the Cliffs Notes version, obviously, but
Right.
it's interesting to me. Like, I don't remember that at all. And that was so, I love the Iliad and the Odyssey. Like, for me, that was
Mhm.
my favorite part of literature in high school.
Well, Cleopatra, the Shakespeare version, there's a character that's known as eunuch.
Mhm.
So that to me is evidence of representation. People who are not seen as male or female, and yet they're part of the canon.
Where does this get lost along the years? Because like I remember reading about lover boys in like the ancient Athenian code when I was in college,
Mhm.
and how it was considered like slaves were not allowed to have lover boys. It was only the most prominent in society. It was a treat. It was a gift. And it was actually also a form of teaching about how to be a good
Mm,
citizen in society. It was like mentorship. And I guess they
right.
didn't really draw that line, that boundary. But I don't know,
Right.
it wasn't looked down on, it wasn't frowned upon. It was actually something that only the prominent were, it was like, given this gift.
Right.
Where does it all get lost? It's in the
That's a good
history.
question. I mean, I can speak for myself. What you're talking about is pederasty, where
What's
there's
that?
intergenerational male love and sex. That's pederasty. And to me, that didn't ever go away, you know. Um, there's a whole resurgence of this like daddy archetype in our culture now. I'm not sure how it is for like heterosexual women in particular, but in the gay world, you know, daddies, older men that are kind of, husky and wise and, knowledgeable and handsome in that way that like older men are handsome, the
Mm,
silver fox, like that archetype is really, really popular right now, particularly like in people in our generation. Like so many people have that daddy fantasy, and
yeah.
younger than us, also, of course, like I have friends who were in their late 20s who are gay men who are being called daddy by younger men. So I think that it didn't ever go away. I think that it became more regulated because, you know, pederasty is not pedophilia.
Mhm.
Those are different things, and you need to be a certain age in order to be able to consent um, to sex, obviously. Um, and so I think that is something that has shifted over the years, although has it really? I mean, has it really? I don't know. But also, I feel like so many people have daddy issues. So many people have had the experience of a father who wasn't available in some way or wasn't
Yeah.
present in some way. And we play out these, these deep-seated needs and these deep-seated longings in our romantic and sexual relationships. And
Yeah.
so if someone is consistently into someone much older than them, like it begs the question, what hole are you trying to fill, or what was your relationship like to the parent of that sex? Sometimes there's a correlation, sometimes there's not. But a lot of people know that they're doing it. When I've dated older men, I've known that it's been because like there's something about that fatherly
Yeah.
archetype that feels very comforting and nurturing, and it feels like, it scratches a certain itch.
Yeah. I mean, I get it.
But
Everyone gets
yeah,
it. I mean, you said I don't know
I
what it's
don't
like
get
in
it.
the for a heterosexual woman, but I know a
Yeah,
lot of my friends love dating older guys. My question is about the older guy. Why are you dating someone so much younger than you? That's a
right.
different question because in my opinion, all of America has daddy issues. Like everyone's daddy was either working too hard or
Right.
depressed.
Right.
you
Or
know, or traumatized
traumatized,
from there.
war torn,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So, cheers.
Cheers, honey.
So we were talking about the Femminelli.
The Feminielli. Yes, yes, we were. They're my family, like after working on that film, I was there last time I was in Naples was February 2020. And COVID started in China and then it was suddenly in Italy.
Mm,
Um, and so, COVID was there, and as soon as I got back to the States, it was lockdown, lockdown, and I haven't been able to go back since. But the years that I spent, you know, shooting the film and being in community, like I
so
miss it so
how
much.
long did you work on it for? And where did you
I
travel to?
started I started in 2017 with development, and like early 2017 I started shooting in like September or October of 2017. Shooting stuff with my family and shooting everything in New York. And then January of 2018 was the first production trip to shoot in Naples. And so
Wow.
we were there for like 3 weeks or something like that. Then I went back that year for like 4 months, just by myself without the production team. Um, I got some people to shoot some things, but really it was about me connecting with my ancestry and connecting with that land that my family left behind, you know?
It's so interesting to me because I've known you since you were like 19, I was 20.
Yeah.
And you're such a different person, but you're still exactly the same. You've just grown a lot, you know? I mean, both of
Yeah.
us have. But what's interesting to me is that I have been witnessing you, and now I'm kind of putting all the pieces together. Like, I remember when you started learning how to speak Italian.
Mhm.
I wonder now where that came from, you know?
Mm.
It's like you
Yeah.
were always kind of getting to this place. You were
Yeah.
always on this journey, and maybe sometimes you didn't know it. But I don't know, was that perhaps you trying to connect to being Italian, you know, because you didn't maybe connect growing up in Staten Island, as you mentioned? Or
Yeah,
were
I
you always
just
connected to being Italian?
it didn't mean anything to me. It didn't I mean, where I grew up and when I grew up, to be Italian was kind of like it was like a cool thing.
Oh, it's
Like
it
it
still
was
is.
cool,
Yeah.
It was a cool thing, but like it didn't have the real significance that I was looking for that I found in other cultures. When we went on semester at sea and I got to learn about cultures all around the world. And then I studied abroad in Brazil and went really deep there. And then I was traveling to all these different places and studying all these different types of folk dance and learning about all these different spiritual traditions. And I said, like, this is so interesting and this is so amazing and my spirit is so connected. And yet I don't know anything about where my family comes from.
Mm,
And I felt like, how can I really show up to the plate at a Haitian voodoo ceremony and learn about these deities and these dances if I can't tell you the first thing about the folkloric dance from my ancestry and from my blood? I didn't feel like I could be a part of any kind of cultural discourse unless I had the the backing knowledge about where I come from.
mm.
Because otherwise it's just appropriating and it's just like, oh, I like this and I like this and I'm white and I'm American and I'm just like, just like floating. And exploration is fine. I'm not here to judge anyone whose life that is, but I knew that I couldn't really fully show up with integrity unless I knew my lineage, where I came from. And that's kind of what it was about, like wanting to be authentic and wanting to really be able to go deeper. When I sit down with a Cherokee person who is two spirit, who is male and female, and has always been that way since, the Cherokees and a lot of the Native American tribes have the traditions of their gender. It's like, how can I possibly sit down with the two spirit of the Cherokee tradition and ask them and inquire about their culture without sharing a single thing about my own?
Right.
I have to be in reciprocity in that way. Otherwise, to me, it feels like I'm just taking. And people give, like, people love sharing about their culture, and they wouldn't necessarily interpret that way. Like, oh, why is this Italian girl coming in and, just questioning me? They wouldn't necessarily feel that way, but I would feel a certain kind of way if I couldn't say, oh, well, here is the tamoriata. I would love to share a song from Southern Italy with you, or share a prayer from Southern Italy with you, you know?
Yeah.
So that kind of cultural exchange is was a large driving factor behind deciding to do the project.
And did you find what you were looking for?
Girl, you have to watch the movie to find out. And I know you did already, so if this is for your listeners, y'all need to watch the movie if
That's
you want
right.
to know. Um,
But
it's not that simple of an answer, I will tell you
yeah, I hear that. So, like,
that.
can I ask you some questions that are taboo, that are like embarrassing to ask?
Yeah.
Just because I know that there are people out there embarrassed to ask, and you're giving us the forum.
Yes, and I want to preface what I'm about to say by I love you. I trust you. I love that we are continuing our connection over nearly 2 decades.
Yeah.
Honey,
Honey.
we
Do you
look
believe?
hotter than ever.
Thank you. Right back at you. You never look
We are
better. We get better with age. It's random.
I mean, look at us.
I know.
We are thriving. You know what I mean? We're thriving. I just feel so at home in your presence. So, yes, you may ask me any questions. And to people who are listening, don't assume that because Nicole is asking me these questions, you can go around asking queer and trans people
Yeah,
all these
that's right.
questions all the time.
That's a good
Yeah,
disclaimer.
so
Just tune in to Miss Producer Unfiltered and find the answers before you go out there.
tracking down trans and queer people and be like, anyway. We have an established rapport of trust that has gone on for many years. So
Yes.
anyway, please
Soul
proceed.
sister. Okay, so first I want to start with a few personal questions. Like when I met you, you weren't trans, you told me you were gay.
Mhm.
Where did that transition take place, or were you confused and didn't know yet?
When I met you, I was identifying as a gay man, and it felt like something that fit. It worked well enough. You know, I was like, yeah, it worked well enough. I always felt femme. I always felt because of my femininity, I was somehow
Less.
desirable. Yeah. Less desirable.
To gay men
Um
or in general?
I would say as like a sexually or yeah, as a viable like romantic. I'm not questioning this narrative. I'm not really
Yeah,
sure that
like
that's
for
true.
women or for men or for...
Yeah, I felt like at some point I realized like a man is not something like I don't feel like that.
Like a
It's
man
like, yeah, I don't feel like a man.
at all?
Um, this is the place where what you asked earlier about the name,
Mm-hmm.
where you were like, oh, well, why can't you just be Tony from Staten Island? And I was like, well, the name gave me access to something else. I think, I think in beginning to identify as gender fluid and gender queer and trans and all these things, it gave it gave language to a part of myself that had been hidden or that I had not fully expressed.
So this
So
was going
by
to be my follow-up question. Do you think that
yeah,
because of the times that you live in and because there's more vocabulary out there than from when I was growing up. Granted, I grew up in a very segregated modern Orthodox / ultra Orthodox Jewish community, but the vocabulary is no longer just gay or straight, you know?
right.
Gender
No,
fluid. Like,
not at
did you
all.
also not have access to that vocabulary when you were growing up? Is
No, I mean, I remember when we were at I was as part of Spectrum, which was the LGBT kind of club on campus. And we had one trans woman who was in our crew. And she didn't quite, like, she was trying to figure it out. She was trying to figure out how to be a woman, you know, like a passable woman with makeup and hair and women's clothing and all of that. And in my experiences with her, I knew that I was more of a woman than she was.
Mm.
Somehow, I was just like, you don't know how to do this at all. And I wasn't wearing women's clothing or anything like that. I was what one would call a twink, which is like a twink is like an effeminate, young, thin, gay boy, who's wearing tight clothes and it's like a bottom, like very passive in sex and is like looking for a dominant man. And I mean, that was like an archetype that I was living in. But I was just like, I was just kind of going along with it. And then once I graduated Miami and went back up to New York and I found queer community, and I just was like at one of these gatherings and there was like a whole drag closet, like filled with dresses and skirts and frilly things. And I was just like, okay, like let me try something on. And I remember I did a fashion show where I dressed up like Little Bo Peep. I mean, it was a total character. And yet people were like, "Oh my God, you look so pretty. You look so beautiful. You look so radiant." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Like, and so it brought, like, it brought out, like, it was like stoking this part of me that, for as a child, like, as a boy, you're bullied for being feminine.
Mm.
You're a faggot, you're a sissy, you're a fruitcake, all these things. And for the first time, I was doing this subversive thing where I wasn't wearing like a full face of makeup or anything. I was just wearing a dress and I was receiving so much validation and so much awe.
And different
And
kind of
like,
compliments.
oh yeah, oh my God.
Beautiful,
Right,
gorgeous, radiant. That
right,
those aren't for men, those
right,
compliments.
right, right.
Usually.
And usually.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where it started. And then I was just kind of like, well, why can't I be like this all the time? And then I was. And then it was like in a matter of a year from that point, my wardrobe had transitioned over, and I've had different stages of fashion and everything like that, but instantly I was like, yeah, I prefer the she pronoun and I like they and I like she. And yeah, it's clear that I have a dick and I'm not, trying to show that, like, pretend in any way that I don't. And when people ask me about my pronouns, I'm like, yeah, like I'm not gonna be insulted if you refer to me as he, but we talk about love languages. There's like all these different, there's like
Mhm.
touching and gift giving and words of affirmation or whatever. And I'm like, correctly gendering me is like a way to my heart. You know what I mean?
Mm.
If someone's like, oh, like, like you just called me soul sister, like that to me like touches me in a really special way because you're acknowledging this part of me that I want, that I feel really at home in,
What's interesting about that is that back when you were a gay man,
Yeah,
identifying as a gay
yeah,
man, I
yeah,
felt you were my girl best friend. That was It wasn't me trying this isn't me, like soul sister for example, isn't me even trying to acknowledge you. That's just the feeling and the vibe and the energy that I've
yeah,
received from you since we were 19, 20 years old.
yeah,
It's just natural. That's just your vibe, you know?
yeah,
So it's interesting. It's super, all of this is so interesting to me, especially my background and where I come from.
yeah,
Um, you opened up my life to so much, to so much.
honey.
It was so freeing just to be in your inner circle, and to connect with you. I didn't
Yeah.
have any opportunities for that, you know? So thank you for your presence in my life.
Oh, girl, I mean, you're, and yes, and like that, like the identity stuff had zero, I feel like zero to do with our connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like instant
Yeah.
ridiculousness, laughter, depth, fight. I mean, we had fights too. Like we got
Yeah.
into it,
Yeah.
which I would never like. That's not as an adult who understands intimacy. I understand that conflict is a necessary part of growing close.
Mhm.
But at that point, like, you know, having a conflict with a close friend to me was like the end of the world. Like, oh my God, like we're fighting and it's like, oh my God. And you know, like something about our bond really showed me what friendship was in a way that I hadn't really experienced before.
Oh, wow. I love that. It's so funny
Yeah.
because now you couldn't catch me like fighting with a friend, you know? At this point in like the mid 30s, it's like, oh, you're out. Or, okay, but not because I hate you, not from a place of like emotions, from a logical place. Like
Right.
you understand now in retrospect, doing all the therapy, doing all the work, like, okay, whatever's happening inside of you is not matching up with mine, and this isn't gonna work, whereas when you're younger, you want to work things out and you don't even know why you're fighting. You think you do at the time, but now looking back, you're like, oh my God, I was so young and I was so mature. Like, why didn't I just let her
Insecure.
do her own thing for like 5 minutes?
Right.
Like now you're like, so knowing psychology, now you just understand people's motives and motivations, and you can't even get mad, really, I think, you know?
Right.
It's so funny. But okay, so a follow-up to that is you said that you have a dick. So my question to you is why?
Mm. Why? Well, one,
If you don't like, you identify with she and they more than he. You said I wouldn't
yeah.
get insulted. You were kind of hesitant when you said that, but
Mhm.
you're not, if you don't identify as a he, how come that part of you doesn't bother you? Because you're all about that part of you.
I mean, not just me.
Ah.
Uh, just kidding. I'm not a slut most of the time.
And then,
But
sorry to hit you with a bunch of
yeah,
questions at once, but this is
yeah.
what I wanted to get to, is a conversation that we had a few weeks ago, which was, again, me not understanding, like, why change your body? Why not just say, and also why change your name? Like, this is my perspective, which you can help me shake it, but my perspective is just like, why change your name? Why change your body? Isn't that conforming to society's narrative and views on what a specific gender looks like, you know?
Yeah, I can speak from my own
Yes.
perspective, and for me, it's enough. I feel fully expressed in my gender and in my body, um, as I am. I feel fully expressed, you know. When I choose my clothing and I wear makeup, that for me is like that's my expression of my gender. Like I don't need to go any further than I feel like this is me.
Mm-hmm.
When I experience my sheeness, I don't.
What's a she-ness?
It's like it's a penis, but it's a sheeness.
Gotcha.
It's a yeah. So when I'm experiencing myself in my own body, I'm not like, oh, I'm such a hot guy. I don't feel like even if I have muscles and I'm like working out and everything, and I have a dick,
Show
like
us your
I
sick
don't.
abs one more time. Woo! I wish.
Dancing girl. Um, like I don't feel I don't feel like a man even in the body that I have. I don't, my body doesn't feel gendered to me. Other people can project gender onto it and say, oh, yeah, you look so whatever. But like, I mean, I look at Venus Williams and I'm like, oh, yes, we have the same shoulders. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
mean, she's even more built, but I don't experience even the body hair that I have. I don't look at it and say, oh, this is so manly. I just say, I have body hair, just like a cat or just like, another animal.
Hmm.
Um, and yet, if I wanted to, if I was more affected by people's lack of recognition of my femininity, if I was more affected by people seeing me and being like, that's a man, then I would take more action to change that. I would consider, which I have up and down. Believe me, this isn't like, oh, I've always been at peace with this. Like I've come to this place, but I don't, um, I don't feel like if I wanted people to view me more as like a stereotypical woman, then because I needed that from the world, then that's what I would do. I would be shaving my legs every single day. I would be getting electrolysis on my face. I would be taking hormones to change my face and change the dimensions of my body and grow breasts. And I would be considering getting a vaginoplasty, and which is, the getting a vagina basically. And I would consider those things, but at this stage, like I am a very deeply emotional and feeling person. I'm extremely sensitive already to my environment, and I just don't think that I would be happier in a different body or a different version of myself. I just don't see it happening. Like hormones, me taking estrogen, I would probably become dysfunctional in society. I feel like I would just be crying all the time, or like, you know, I'd be going through it constantly. I'd be looking at a flower and just unable to continue with life, you know?
That's literally me all day.
So,
So is that what you
yeah.
think? So then here's the question. Is that what you think is happening to transgender women or men out there? And also, have you come to this realization, do you think, because of your age and because of your wisdom and your time here on the planet and the fact that you've grown so much as a human being and just matured? And like, in my 20s, I was not as confident as now. I'm sure in my 40s, I'll be even more confident and owning
Mhm,
myself and who I am and this and that,
mhm.
So is it due to your age, or have you always been this confident in yourself and self-expressed?
When I was first coming to terms with who I am, I'm thinking around the time of like 2016, 2017. I was hanging around a lot of, and I have a lot of, my community is trans and queer, but there was like I felt like I had a concentrated friend group where everyone was a trans woman who had medically transitioned, and I was the only one who hadn't. And I don't identify as a trans woman, but I was in that group, and I felt so much pressure from that group to conform in that way to what the group was doing. And so, when are you going to start your hormones? Oh, this is how you do your makeup. So you can hide your facial hair. And oh, you're looking like, you're whatever, like a lot of judgment around like being more fluid. And I think when I was younger, I was more looking outside myself for the validation from my peers and from my community. And At this point, I mean, here in Asheville, I don't know hardly very few queer and trans people. I mean, we're here, like I definitely have my queer friends and community, but I mean, this is a small town of 80,000 people, so there's not that many people, but my sense of self-worth and self-love has grown to be more like coming from inside of myself and like realizing that I have to have a relationship with myself. It sounds kind of cliche, but like my relationship with myself is a real thing. It's a tangible thing. It's not an idea. It's like, what decisions am I making for myself? How am I lifting up myself? How am I taking care of myself? How am I, celebrating myself? Like, those are concrete things that I've learned to do that in the past I would have been looking to men that I was dating to give me that,
Mm,
or friends, like friends that I idolized, which I had many. Like I've had this one friend in particular that I'm thinking of who we've kind of fallen out, but when you're young and you're again having this question of where do I belong and how do I fit in, I had people that I idolized and I wanted to be like them and I would have done anything for their acceptance. And so, that meant changing who I am and changing who I was in order to appease that.
mhm.
And I don't do that shit as much anymore. Like that's kind of I mean, I'm just like it doesn't really work in the end. Like, I mean, it's just heartbreak
Yeah,
ultimately.
every time.
Every
It's so
time.
funny. I don't know, like for me growing up with an older sister who was developing faster than me, I would have done anything for those boobs. I was so jealous of those boobs. Like I used to put water balloons in my sports bra and go play basketball in my backyard. You know what I mean? Did you ever experience that?
Um, I actually did something where, so I knew what a period was. This was like
Mm.
when I was like really young. I knew that women got their period, but I didn't, but I really wanted to. Like I wanted to know what it was. So after I took a shit, I would I would roll up toilet paper and put it in my underwear.
I love this.
And I would just like kind of keep it in there like all day and just like be happy that I like had there's like a pad.
There's a pad in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, I have a pad. Um,
Pad pride. That's so
um,
funny.
but I
But
never
like,
was like looking
were
at,
you jealous of your
yeah.
sister? You have an older sister.
I was jealous. I don't ever remember feeling jealous actually. Although she always had
Oh.
boyfriends, like starting at like 11 or 12, like she had one boyfriend for like 5 years who was like part of the family. And
Mhm.
then she had another boyfriend for like a year and then her husband.
Wow.
So like
So you were not
I've
jealous
I've
in a bad, I didn't mean jealous in a bad way, just like I
no, I know.
wishing. My
No,
sister
I
had the
no.
hottest boyfriends and I was like 12.
Right. Yeah. She's 3 years older.
4.
For
She
my
was
sister's 2 years older.
16, gorgeous,
Yeah.
all the hottest guys in the neighborhood and in the high school were like wanted her. And I'm like 12, can I come? Tagging along. She wanted to kill me. But I just wanted to be her. I wanted to have boobs. I wanted to go out on dates, you know?
That was the kind of stuff that I was jealous of. Like
Yeah.
my sister, we would go to the feast, like the Italian feast or whatever, and the boys would just be like flocking.
Thank
You
you.
know about the Italian there would be these like Italian street
I
fairs
went
and everything.
once. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the boys would just be like flocking and I mean, I was so desexualized at a young age. Like I did not feel like I had any business thinking about dating anyone ever. And but there was a part of me that I don't know. Like I was so innocent. Like I was just so innocent. Like I never really fantasized sexually, like until I was like in high school or whatever, but it was like she just had it. I felt like she kind of had it easy in a way. Like she had it really easy compared to me. It was easy for her to like have a friend group, because at that age, like in high school, there are the boys that hang out together and the girls that hang out together, and there's some overlap, but usually it's in the context of like who's hooking up with
Mm-hmm.
who. And so the girls know all about like each other's feelings and who's dating who and all of that. And the boys also have that experience. And so for me, in that high school context, whatever sexual stuff I was going to be experiencing was always going to be on the down low. And I could never be part of the social experiment or like the socializing around attraction and dating and sexuality. So I felt like, in a way, my sister got indoctrinated very early into, you know, this kind of
Girldom.
right of like relationships and, just having a family and just that whole the relationship escalator, as it
Mm-hmm.
were.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always outside of it, and it really sucked for a long time. And now it felt like a carte blanche. Like I got out of that shit.
Yeah.
I wasn't subject to that shit because of my identity. And who knows why, for real. I mean, we could say, oh, it's because of my queerness and because of my gender, but I'm weird in a lot of other ways. Like I stand out really differently from, the people that I grew up with. I stand out. Gender is just one thing. So I don't know. I try not to make everything about gender and sexuality. I just think
Yeah,
of it
I
as a
don't, that's the thing. That's the thing that gets to me is like, why does it have to be about that? And why do people need to know who you're sleeping with? Why do you need to even come out of a closet? Like, why? I don't understand whose business any of that is.
right.
It's so random to me.
Yeah,
I'll never understand. I'll never understand.
right.
Like, what? You have to make an announcement
Right.
about your sex life. Did you see that Tom Hardy video when a reporter was asking him about his sexuality? You didn't
What
see
did he
that. There's a
say?
video there, this reporter's asking him, he's like, I don't understand your question, mate. And he's like, I'm asking you, he's like, what are you asking me? He's like, I'm asking you about your sexuality. And he's like, why? And the reporter had nothing to say. And he was like, thank you very much. And he just like, why? I don't get it. So but back to the question about, changing your body.
Right.
Um, do you agree with it or do you have no judgments? Do you agree? Is there like an age that you think it would be appropriate? Because there's a lot of talk now about letting children start taking like anti-puberty medications and all that jazz.
Right. T
Feel about
blockers.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Testosterone blockers. And this again is related to the question around consent for sex at a young age. It's like at what age should you have full autonomy to make decisions for your own body? Like that's really what this is about. And unfortunately, we do live in a transphobic and homophobic and femphobic society. We live in a society where it's really dangerous to be presenting outside of the normalized boxes of man and woman. If you are someone like myself that is gender fluid, that is presenting yourself to the world in a way that transcends gender norms, I'm wearing a dress, or maybe someone born female is wearing a tuxedo or whatever. If you are walking through the world like that, you are subject to violence. You're subject to judgment. You're subject to harassment. I've received it all. Violence, it's a fact. So I understand why a parent of a child who is 10, 11, and saying that they don't want to like fully grow into a woman. They don't fully want to grow into a man. They want to transition. I understand why a parent would want to be able to make that decision for their child because this is a very violent context for people to be trying to figure it out. It's really unsafe. Um, so, that being said, it makes it really difficult to answer that question because people want what's best for their children and they don't want their children, they want their children to be happy and they want their children to feel safe and they want their children to feel at home in their bodies. Maybe there are alternative ways, alternative therapies to help young trans children to find ways to feel at home in their bodies without permanent medical procedures at a young age. Like, and I would encourage families to explore those before jumping to anything that is permanent because gender is always fluid and and sexuality is fluid and you never know what you're going to feel like later. But unfortunately the world that we live in is it's not it's kinder to a passable trans person. If you look at a man and you have no idea that he was born with a vagina and that he may even still have a vagina, you'll be able to just interact with him as you would any other man because he looks like a man. He has facial hair, his voice sounds like a man, his body looks like a man. It's you wouldn't stop him on the street,
Yeah, but
And the same thing with a woman.
that goes back to my original thing. Like, so we're making it, we're changing our bodies to make it easier for other people. Or, as you once told me, some people just want a pussy.
That's also true, yeah.
Like, is it that simple, Or,
Some people do want a pussy.
when I was getting all philosophical on you, you're like, hey, some people just want a fucking pussy.
They do. They do, and they deserve them.
But what I'm saying is forget about talking to the parents. Like, let's talk to the young children out there, Like, how long did it take you to figure out your sexuality and I had it easy. I'm a heterosexual woman. Society saw me that way. I didn't have any issues there. Those weren't my issues. And I didn't figure myself out until I was 30 plus.
Yeah. I'm kind of in a process of peeling back the layers. Like I feel like I'm in a process of deconditioning myself. Do I think that I only like men at this point? No, actually. I mean, I just want to be happy and fulfilled and have my needs met and like I'm willing to be flexible about what that looks like. And um I remember identifying as gay before ever having a male experience, like before ever having a sexual experience with anyone, I was like, I just felt like I was gay at 11 years old.
Because you were attracted to men?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it was like as I'm 35, I'm gonna be 35 next month. It's like attraction is not it's not black and white.
No.
Like my attraction to women is real. It's real. It's not the same as men, but it is real and it's valuable and it's delicious and it's fun, and it runs a gamut of sensuality. I mean, not really sexuality, but sensuality and softness and like love, you know,
Mhm.
and that's a discovery that I made because of my openness. Um, but gender is different because, well, the kinds of gender questions you're bringing up are different because you're asking about permanent medical procedures. And let's be honest about the fact that the medical um, industry itself has um, financial stake in any procedures that happen, any pill that's prescribed, any surgery that's performed. The medical business in our country benefits. So we have to really take every medical prescription that's being given to us with a grain of salt and say, well, who is benefiting from the possibility of this thing coming to fruition?
Mhm.
Just saying.
I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think about that angle.
Like, let's, I would love to just kind of look at who are the lobbyists
I
for
was
this
just
kind of
thinking that, yeah.
legislature and see what their relationship is to, you know, some of the most powerful, pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go to a community health center in New York, and when I identified as gender fluid, immediately they wanted to start me on my hormones. They're like, oh, are you on estrogen? I'm like, da, da, da. Do you want to be on it? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Mm.
Like every time I would go in, they would like ask me multiple times. And like it did feel like I was being pressured
Yeah.
in a way. And I was like, why are you pressuring me?
I
It's
wonder
like,
what
what
your
kind of
commission is
incentive?
on this one.
Right. What is your incentive for this?
Yeah.
You know, it's beyond that. And there are people who do transition in alternative ways, that are not going through the pharmacy industrial complex and are doing things that are herbal and finding other ways. But I don't know. It's a really difficult question, and other people have asked me recently to like talk on it. And for me, what it comes down to if the society was more accepting of people who express in ways that are beyond the binary of gender, then this would not be a question that we're having. But the truth is that it is an unsafe place for people who are in between. And that's the issue. That's what needs to be addressed.
Mm.
Um, and and really doing more research to find alternative ways of helping young people feel at home in their bodies, you know?
In
And
general, not just for the trans community, right?
right, right, period,
Period.
period. We all need that. We all need to find ways home to ourselves, to our bodies.
So tell us more about Summer Within.
Oh, you want to
Both.
know more about something with
I
me?
want to know
I
more
guess
about
I
Summer Within. I would like you to promote your amazing documentary, by the way, that I saw. That's so touching.
um yeah, basically we haven't premiered our film yet. I'm working on it with dear beloved, he Adam Golub of Megamote Media. He shot and edited, and we co-directed, and we're kind of just submitting to festivals right now. We know that this is a groundbreaking film.
Mm-hmm.
There's never been a film made in English about the femininity. There's never been a film about queer Italian American identity. Oddly enough, this is the first. And yet, we're submitting to festivals and hoping to get in, to the ones that we really respect and admire, to premiere. So that's kind of where we're at. I also co-edited a book called Italian Trans Geographies that we just submitted the revised manuscript to our publisher, which is State University of New York Academic Press.
Wow.
So that should be released at the end of the year or beginning of 2023. And this is my first major academic piece of writing that's being published in a major by a major academic publisher. So we're really excited about that. And just kind of living on a prayer right now, honey. Just being like, okay, like one of these amazing festivals is gonna choose us,
They will
and
for sure.
um,
I mean,
yeah,
it touched my soul from the first 10 seconds.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you for saying that. It's deep. It's extremely personal, and I hope that before too long, it's gonna be available for viewing for all y'all who are listening and watching, and um I'm always open to conversations and sharing my work with people. Um, I'm really, everything that I do is really like um, giving and illuminating and wanting to share and invite people in, to things, so that we can look at them together and say, well, how about that? You know?
Yeah.
Um, So that's kind of where we're at. It's been a really long and hard journey. Like I said, I started in 2017. We're going into 2023.
Not
Um,
yet.
not yet, not yet. We still have several months, my birthday, etc.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's a film that has my blood in it, my sweat in it, my tears in it. So much, so many tears. Like I experienced so much. It's hard to even describe because even the words sound again cliche or like they've been said, but unless you've ever made a film that you'd be willing to do anything to complete, then you don't know what this is like. Like,
Hmm.
and that's what this was for me. Like I battled so much inner turmoil with my production team, like the realest of the real, like real life shit unfolding as I'm trying to just make this movie. It's like heartbreaks and deaths and loss and pandemics and um all trying to, and now it's like I did all of it and the film is like wrapped in a tiny little bow after having raised tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, is anyone ever going to see this?
Everyone's gonna see it.
That's where
And you
I'm
know
at
what?
today.
Cassavetes said you have to be willing to risk it all. Those are like the true artists. You have a lot of courage. I wrote a screenplay about all my trauma, all my shit,
Yeah.
and then I just buried it. I don't need anyone to know about it. I don't need anyone to see it. I don't need to film it. I don't need it out there. And they say the more personal, the more universal. I know that you're going to touch so many souls
Yes.
because of it. I didn't have that courage.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
it means a lot to me, to other artists out there who are battling with the same thing. I mean, it means a lot and it's well appreciated, much appreciated, and everyone will see it.
By the way, thank you. And Cassavetes also sold his house to be able to pay for his like first or second movie.
I didn't know
He
that.
either sold a house or took out a second mortgage or some crazy shit like
Wow. I'm not doing that, but
that. But I know I signed up for this. I signed up for it.
you didn't even sign up
That's
for
just
it. It's who
kind of
you
it.
are. It's who you are. It's what you do. I'm
Right.
sure it was I'm sure there was a lot of healing involved in the process as well, a lot of reflection, a lot of learning, you know. It's very intense and I appreciate you and I know everyone will fall in love with you as I have.
That's my Staten Island roots. The fist bump.
Yeah. So there it is. By the way, did you see The King of Staten Island?
No, I didn't see it.
All right, cool. So we'll end it here. I loved it though. I thought it was great. You should watch it.
I'm gonna watch it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna watch it. Yeah, it would be good to watch that. It
I
would
wish
be
there was
good.
like a movie about my hometown.
Great Neck.
Or do I?
The King of Great Neck, that's you.
Wow. What a place. Okay. I love you so much. Thank you. I'm
I love
calling
you
you
so
right
much.
now. I'm calling you right as we end this.
Okay, cool.
Love
Yeah,
you.
perfect. Love you.
Bye.
Hit that like button and subscribe.